Well, Paul, nice try. Paul wrote that second reading for us for today, the passage from 2 Corinthians. Nice try, Paul, though. I wonder, did he ever think about simply telling the church in Corinth, maybe for the second, third, or fourth time, I wonder if he ever thought about telling the good souls of that church in Corinth that their offering was just needed. Did he, like we did last week, at our meeting that we had after worship, a lot of us were there, not all of us though, but we had a meeting after worship last week to look at our finances and to show the numbers and show the deficit, point out the need, the red in a sense, emphasize that urgency. Did Paul ever think to just emphasize the need, the dire situation, the urgency? We don't really read that in our passage for this morning. I'm not quite sure how Paul first approached and asked the congregation in Corinth to collect, to give an offering. But here's a few things for us to consider. First of all, from these few verses, it might not have been exactly clear that Paul is asking the church to give, not for their own needs. The Apostle Paul is pleading for them, for the congregants, to collect their money and send it away, send it to the church in Jerusalem, in order for that church to take care of their elderly, their widows, the poor in the community. So, if our definition of stewardship, and I know it's not fall, but we can certainly talk that S word here in worship, stewardship. That's the S word I'm talking about. I said S word. Well, you never know. So if our definition of stewardship is collecting money to cover your budgets, well, this isn't the text for that. This is the second reading from for today. And I also would imagine that Paul would consider that to actually be a far too simplistic and shallow understanding of stewardship, of spirituality. A poor example of faith. Let's just collect money so we can pay our bills. That is not good stewardship. Instead, we can see, if we really listen to and pay attention to Paul's rhetoric, I think we receive something much richer this morning than just a plea to gather money to meet some needs. So we're going to take a look at that reading, and if you want to, you can have your bulletin open in front of you. There may or may not be questions asked of you, like a quiz. Oh wait, I'm starting right out with that. How does Paul begin this passage, these words? How does Paul begin his address to the church in Corinth? Does he say, okay, you bunch of lazy, good-for-nothing cheapskates, you are so tight with your money? Is that what he does? Does he lay that on them? No, not at all. No. You Corinthians, you excel. You are excellent. You are excellent in faith and speech and understanding and eagerness. Obviously, just like we here at Village, they are an excellent congregation, right? Yes. Just like us, they excel. Because after all, don't we excel? We don't recite the same words, the liturgy from a hymnal week after week. No. Several of us either write our own words or spend time sifting through the many, many already available words on the internet to thoughtfully compose or put together relevant liturgies, litanies, and prayers, week after week after week. When someone in our little group or someone connected to us struggle, whether it's their health or a need for transportation, supplies, we are there. We offer rides, we visit, we call, and we care. Some of us help lead worship, provide wonderful music, beautify our worship space, count, most importantly, make coffee, and do it well.
Amen.
Amen. Yes. Most importantly, yes. Some of us meet each month to lead this congregation, or more times than that. We are a fine and dedicated little group of people at Village Church. So, while Paul and I obviously understand that you get more flies with honey than vinegar, or another version of that you might be familiar with.
Very true.
Yeah. They can't be vain or empty praise, because that would sound disingenuous. Everything I said is true, and I believe it. This is not a mere rhetorical device and manipulation. That's not all that we're doing. Because while we know that many of us operate and behave, we will do better. We will be better when we are motivated by positive encouragement and not being spanked. We operate better by positivity and not fear. This is what's to be part of the church. This is part of our faith. The encouraging one another, okay? Paul and we believe that each and every one of us brings something to the table. That all of our gifts, while they're all different, all of them are important and valued. Every member is valued as a member of Christ's body. That's using Paul's language, not in this passage, but elsewhere. But here on earth, we are all. Just like we started with remembering Eugene and that simple gift he gave us every Sunday of making sure the candles were lit. So that's where we begin. Not just this passage, but a starting point of our faith. We and the love with which God creates each and every one of us is basic, fundamental, and key to everything we do. Of course, though, sometimes that might not be enough. Just might not be. Because evidently, sometimes just being reminded of how good we are and how we excel just doesn't cut it. So if hearing how good you are doesn't get the job done, Paul does have more to say. He knows we are people with, all sorts of things going around in our heads. So, of course, now, Paul would not just come out and demand and command them to give. He would never do that. Because he knows. And he reminds the church in Corinth that he could do that because Paul knows most folks just don't like to follow orders. So, I could demand and tell you, hey, pony up. Paul's not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't even think of telling you to do that, to give. Paul says that he wouldn't even think about commanding them. to do it. You got that going on? See what's going on? You know this. It wouldn't even cross our minds. Because being shamed into doing something under compulsion, while the act might get done, the coffee might get made, the money might come in, the words would get said, but those are just empty actions. Without spirit, without heart. It's just empty actions, empty words. And that's not why we are here. And this is key for Paul, for the Corinthians, for all of us. Serving, giving, worshiping, none of that is done and done well if it's a must, if you should. Diane, I'm going to put you on the spot. If a singer doesn't have love in their heart, they might hit all the notes, right? Isn't there a little something missing? And we had a visitor who was talking, commented about how wonderful a director she is, and that she instills that love and shows that love with our choir instead of beating us over the head with a stick or a yardstick or a hymnal or whatever she could. It is a gift, and therefore we sing out of our heart and our love. It's not about just hitting the right notes. Not at all. The true impetus, as I mentioned, is love. And as Paul points out in this passage, it begins in love and God's love for us. Giving for those in need in the early church in Jerusalem, or giving to Interchange Food Pantry, or giving to support our ministry here isn't about paying the bills. It comes out of God's love for us and to show us, to help us know in our heads, in our hearts, how very deeply that love is. God became just like us, lived among us. Jesus even gave up his life. He didn't run away from the hard things. He didn't run away from pain or suffering. He didn't run away from all that, but went right to it for each and every one of us. Now, just to think about that amazing love, that is so much more meaningful than merely pay to play. Oh, I wasn't at church that Sunday. I don't have to give for that Sunday. That is so much more meaningful to know that we give out of love. So this passage from Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, with all of the rhetorical devices and our own stewardship, our finances, and I think as we displayed last week at our meeting, it's not about money. It's not. I am not up here preaching about money. Believe me, I'm not. I'm preaching about love. I'm preaching about love. And so we give. We give whatever. Money? Sure. Our time? Yes. Our talents, our passions, our questions, our energy. We give our very selves because we know and we feel and we practice and we want to share the most important gift of all, love. Amen.